Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Hey, it's Jen. This is the Bible for Busy People podcast. This is our last day talking about all things made new. And I want to ask, what is the point of the Bible? If you had asked me years ago, I probably would have said it's a roadmap for how to act and how to live in order to please God. I would have leaned more towards a legalistic view, the view that every person in the Bible is a moral character who we should either be like or not. As I've come to approach the Bible differently, I now see the story as being not about us as humans, but about God. And it's not about following rules to try to get God to be happy with us. It's about all that God does to reconcile us to himself. We talked about this earlier in the week, but the whole story of the Bible points to God bringing us back into relationship and restoring the world back to wholeness and fullness, making heaven and earth one, a place where God dwells with us. As we talked about earlier this week, because of Jesus, we're united with God, becoming a sanctuary for God and representing the kingdom of heaven here on earth. We are what ties kingdom and earth together until the day that God brings them all together in reality. Revelation 21 points to this day that we have to look forward to, when the old way of things will pass away. Before we read it, though, it's important to note a few things about Revelation. First, that it is called apocalyptic literature. That's the Greek apocalypsis, a prophetic writing that tells of visions and symbolism. The Bible Project says Jewish apocalypses recounted a prophet's symbolic visions that revealed God's heavenly perspective on history, so that the present could be viewed in light of history's final outcome. Prophecies sometimes told of what is to come, but moreover, they are God's words directed to the people of God through a prophet, meant to challenge and comfort. Revelation was a way of giving hope and encouraging followers to stay faithful despite ongoing persecution, written to believers in the early church who were still under Roman oppression. These words met them and meet us in the middle of our messy reality and give us hope for what is to come. Today we're reading in Revelation 21. In verse 1, it says, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea." That's hard to imagine when the earth is mostly water. "I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away.' He who is seated on the throne said, 'I am making everything new.' Then he said, 'Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true.' He said to me, 'It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the idolaters, and all liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death." Hold on to that thought. We'll come back to it in a minute because I know that's intense. But starting back from the beginning, on the Center for Excellence in Preaching website, Chelsea Harmon makes a note that the imagery of a city is significant here. The original audience for the book of Revelation would have been people who lived in cities, including Jerusalem, which had been occupied and destroyed twice, once by the Babylonians and then by the Romans. This home of God's people, where great pains were taken to construct the temple according to God's instructions, and then was rebuilt after Babylon, the place where God's people were meant to belong was lost, and that was still painful for these people. And then there was daily persecution. Believers were ostracized and viewed with suspicion. They were set apart from the rest of the city, which brought its own challenges. Harmon says, so when John says the city, the symbolic New Jerusalem, comes down from heaven, from God, what hope and relief the people must have felt. They may no longer feel at home within the Roman city walls that towered above them, but in God's city, the promise is Not only to feel like you belong, but to have God dwell with you, to actually be at home and to belong fully. And to top it off, all of the kinds of people who cause the grief and pain and ostracism and all the things that stain this world, people who have rejected the truth and made sin a way of life for themselves and for others, are not to be part of this city of God. This image brought glorious hope for them, and it brings glorious hope to us. There is also imagery of a bride meeting her groom on a wedding day, of a celebration of being united. And you get such a sense for God's tender affection for people, wanting to dwell with us, personally wiping away every tear, doing away with death, mourning, crying, and pain, which were all things that were never supposed to be part of this human experience anyway. God says it is done, which shows us that this was the task that God has been working for throughout the whole Bible, bringing it to completion. It also says there will be consequences for those who persistently choose sin. The fiery lake imagery happens in other places in the Bible, but it may not be literal. What it does indicate, as BibleHub.com puts it, is a separation from God and God's blessing. Make sure you go back and read the imagery that follows these passages. It's just a beautiful concept of what the city of God will look like someday, the city of the New Jerusalem. But now we're going to skip down to verse 22, which says, I did not see a temple in the city, because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and the Lamb is its lamp. The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their splendor into it. On no day will its gates ever be shut, for there will be no night there. The glory and honor of the nations will be brought into it. Nothing impure will ever enter it, nor will anyone who does what is shameful or deceitful, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. God is the temple. God's light will serve to light the whole space. Again, there will be separation from what is made pure by Christ and the impure. Have you ever stopped to consider what heaven will be like? What would you envision? Make sure to go back and read the rest of Revelation 21 that talks about the city and all of the beautiful things that will be a part of it. But you can imagine it for yourself as well. Thanks for talking with me this week about all things made new. And I will talk with you again next week. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to assume two things about you. First of all, that you're a busy person. And second, that you are in need of a restful break. Cannon Beach Conference Center is the place for a beautiful coastal retreat. Whether it's one of their enriching conferences or your own church or ministry event. You can find out more at 800-745-1546 or visit cbcc.net. Thank you to Cannon Beach Conference Center for sponsoring the Bible for Busy People.
Thank you for listening to The Bible for Busy People. If you need prayer or want to go deeper in your faith, visit our show notes. Will you take a moment to share with a friend and leave a review? It helps the Bible get into even more people's minds and hearts. Find more podcasts that will recharge you at purposely.com.